This is HBR News number 516. Undercover Jogging Cops. Is Roblox a predator's paradise? Where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello everybody and welcome to Honey Badger Radio once again. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you have learned to laugh at all of the insanity going on around us so that you do not become consumed by it. I am your host Brian, and I'm joined by, as always, my lovely co-hosts Hannah Wallen and Dr. Randomcam. On this week's HBR News, I want to say it is a kind of a slow news week, but I wanted to try and find things that were like directly related to the things that I think the channel is about, which are men's issues, things like due process, as well as freedom of speech and like being able to continue to do this work, which we need free speech to do. So we're going to be talking about this lawsuit that has gone against a game called Roblox. I never played it. I know it's what the Gen Alpha kids are doing right now, but there is potentially something sinister going on there. But then we have something that's legitimately serious, at least in terms of the consequences. The Surrey police, if I'm correct on this, have sent out undercover coppettes disguised as joggers and more. So stick around; it's going to be a good time.
I will be ranting for hours on this.
On the the joggers. We're going to make room for that. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron only show. So you're probably looking at this pause face of this troubled looking guy, or maybe that's a troll smile. I'm not really sure. We're going to be watching some of this video. This is a Jubilee video. They're usually good for viral content. And I couldn't really find like a good Arwa Madawi article or something like that. But I was kind of curious to look at this. So this is one of their series called Surrounded, and it's entitled One Black Radical versus 20 Black Conservatives, featuring Amanda Seales. I don't know who that is. But I think that the way that they're framing this is not quite right. And I haven't watched it, but I have a sneaking suspicion that this is going to be more of a sex or gender-oriented conversation rather than a political one or even a black one. So look at...
While South Park is complaining about Charlie Kirk, about people who master debate college girls and then edit out the bits where they have good arguments, meanwhile, shit like Jubilee is happening, where they do this and they massively edit it to take out all the people who said sensible things. They do their best to edit out all the people who said the most sensible things, and they try to leave you with the least sensible things. And even after they've done that, fucking the radicals, as I believe they're just calling themselves now.
Yeah, they're just calling themselves radicals now.
They're made to look like they win everything. And that's what's going on. That's what's been going on for not just the last 10 years, but for the last several decades.
Mm-hmm. And we know Jubilee. We know Jubilee does this because we've spoken to MRAs who have been on their panels, namely Blue Orange 22 and Christoph Petgaz, who have both made appearances, and they both have said that there's a lot that was on the cutting room floor, and in particular when they were making strong arguments. So make of that what you will. I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm done. Let's get on with it.
All right. Go. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to look at some of this in the Patreon show. If you want to join us for that, you have to become a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com/subscribe to become a part of our little community. If you want to just look at what this is a Discord server, you'll be able to watch all the additional content there. You can also check it out for free, but you won't be able to see the bonus content, but you'll be able to see what the community is like by going to badgerfeed.com. That's Badger. No, I'm sorry. That's not Badger. It's badgernation.online for the free part of the Discord. But Badger Feed is where our content lives, where we archive it, so you can watch it in case we get yeeted from the internet for wrong think and wrong speak. So anyway, all of that. Plus, we have a meetup coming up September 13th in Calgary, Alberta. So if you want to check that out, just go to the website, feedthebadger.com, to get all the details, and hopefully we'll see you guys there. All right. So with all that said, let us get into today's stories. Oh, we got to talk about Roblox first. So this is like a bit of a. There's a lot going on here. Okay, so in August 2025, Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill filed a lawsuit against Roblox Corporation in the 21st Judicial District, alleging the platform fails to protect children from sexual exploitation and harmful content. The lawsuit claims Roblox's lack of effective age verification and moderation allows predators to target minors through inappropriate user-generated games. For example, apparently Roblox has, it's sort of like Little Big Planet, where you can create your own worlds, or like Minecraft. And there's somebody made a game called Escape to Epstein Island.
Should have been a red flag right there.
Yeah, but kids are not stupid, and I mean, like, yeah. So this is. But anyway, look, let me finish this, because there's more to it than what we're seeing, I think. Anyway, and chat features a separate lawsuit in California filed by an Oakland County, Michigan mother alleges her 10-year-old daughter was groomed via Roblox's chat and Robux currency, with predators moving conversations to Discord. Over 300 similar cases are under investigation by firms like Dolman Law Group. The lawsuits stem from accusations that Roblox prioritizes profits over safety, enabling predators to exploit its young user base. Over half of the users are under the age of 13. This is a Generation Alpha game, very silly kids game, okay? But hugely popular. Like, I started a gaming channel, Honey Badger Arcade, and I was just streaming games. I never marked anything safe for kids, because I don't play kid games. And I remember a lot of the early people who would show up in my streams would ask me if I play Roblox. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, how old are you? So it's very popular with young people. Very young. Anyway, critics, citing a 2024 Hindenburg research report calling Roblox a pedophile hellscape, highlight systemic moderation failures and inadequate safeguards. Public outrage grew after Roblox banned vigilante user Schlep, who exposed predators, prompting claims of a cover-up. Representative Ro Khanna's petition for better child protections has added pressure. So, and then there's more to this. Okay, so Roblox has cited that they use AI moderation, and new features like age estimation and parental controls. And so there's 300 cases that are already being processed now, and Representative Ro Khanna is pushing for legislative action on child safety. Now, but there's more to this than this. This does not exist in a vacuum. You guys might remember, and I think okay, let me just lay this out, okay? So this recent controversy surrounding Roblox has raised serious concerns about child safety, right? Alleged allegations of inadequate moderation, enabling predator activity, and data privacy violations have sparked lawsuits, regulatory scrutiny, and public outcry. This report examines the timing and context of these events, alongside the push for legislation, like the Kids Online Safety Act, to highlight suspicious patterns, suggesting the controversy may be leveraged to advance privacy-invasive policies. So I think that there's a lot of stuff that's going on at the same time, and it's not just a coincidence. There's these big pushes for online safety, for moderation. YouTube just put something through, right, that like allows AI to determine if you're of the if you're of the appropriate age. You have Collective Shout, which has been around for a long time, and they're suddenly gaining a tremendous amount of traction, and they're using payment processors to go after companies like Steam and itch.io and GOG. So because of this, apparently the claim is that Roblox has lax safety protocols, and the timing of government actions raises questions. Following the Roblox controversy is the escalation in 2025, including a cease and desist against vigilante YouTuber Schlep, who claimed to have aided 6 arrests. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and Federal Trade Commission launched investigations into Roblox practices. Concurrently, Louisiana's lawsuit and Representative Ro Khanna's petition for stronger child protections amplified security. Posts on X suggest sentiment that these events are being used to push KOSA, K-O-S-A, a bipartisan bill aiming to enhance online child safety through age verification and content restrictions. COSA, alongside state laws like New York's Children Online Safety Act, so New York has a Children's Online Safety Act, mandates age verification, potentially requiring government-issued IDs, which could compromise user privacy. The rapid alignment of lawsuits, investigation, and legislative advocacy suggests a coordinated effort to capitalize on Roblox's failures. So, the convergence of Roblox's controversies, government actions, and legislative pushes is striking. The SEC probe began in October 2024, shortly after Hindenburg's report, followed by lawsuits and Kana's petition in 2025. The absence of a federal Screen Act suggests a possible misnomer for NYCOSA or COPPA 2.0. That's a Child Protection Act, but just so you know. But the sentiment on X reflects fears that Roblox's high-profile failures are a pretext for advancing more basically security acts. While no evidence confirms deliberate orchestration, the rapid response from regulators and politicians, coupled with Roblox's long-standing issues being ignored until recently, raises suspicions of opportunism. The emotional appeal of child safety could sway public support for laws that erode your online anonymity, as noted by campaigners like Shelby Knox. The Roblox controversy, marked by credible allegations of child exploitation and lax moderation, has coincided with a surge in lawsuits, regulatory scrutiny, and an advocacy for COSA and similar laws. The timing and intensity of these actions suggests Roblox failures may be leveraged to justify privacy-invasive legislation. While Roblox's safety measures like AI moderation and parental controls show effort, critics argue they are reactive and insufficient. Without evidence of coordinated agenda, the pattern of events warrants skepticism, as a push for age verification risks compromising user privacy under the guise of child protection. And so basically, like, I don't know if this makes sense, but there's a lot of stuff that's going on at around the same time. So there are definitely weird, predatory things going on in Roblox. That's not really what I'm questioning, because whenever you have a platform that is basically like, you know, used by children, then thank you, Meredith, for the super chow, $5, honey for the badgers, thank you. You basically, like, you're gonna have like weirdos on the platform trying to access children. That's just a thing that's gonna happen. But you know what? That's the job of the parents anyway, and that's like a whole different conversation. But I think there are people in our government, in various organizations, advocacy groups, activists like Collective Shout, that will use any tools that they can to basically get control over the internet as we know it, which we know that it's a shadow of its former self already, and that they're going to want to control speech. So I wanted to bring this up. I don't know if you guys, I know this is kind of a weird story, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. So
what's going to happen, right, when AI starts noncing kids? How would that even work, Mike? Good question. All AI can do is copy what it sees people doing online. So maybe eventually it's going to start copying online predators. It's going to contact minors and lure them to a remote location and then just not show up because there's just robots online. And that's, that's even worse in a way. It's one thing to get nonced. It's another thing to get catfished by a robot that's not even a nonce. That's just adding insult to injury. Holy shit. AI catfishing. It's only just occurred to me just now that AI catfishing it's almost certainly already a thing. Back in the day, they had to do it by themselves. Like fat elderly Arabs had to put real time and effort into pretending to be an oppressed nubile princess in Qatar or whatever, so that naive, thirsty white boys send them a shitload of money. But now they can target countless naive, thirsty white boys at the same time. They could just flip a switch and then sit back and casually wank while thousands of naive, thirsty white boys send them their life savings. Holy shit, this is
It's actually already
God,
being
yo,
done
this
with grandparent scams.
it's gonna get so bad. It's already so bad. I mean, it must be. I need to take a moment. Sorry, this happens sometimes. I spontaneously black pill myself, and it hurts. It hurts
There
so
are
bad. I hurt
already-
myself today. We should move on. Sorry.
There are already examples of this happening. What you just talked about is already happening with simulators that mimic voices of people. If you have been, if you've posted video online, or otherwise put your voice out there on the internet, and there have been grandparents that have received phone calls from their grandkids that were not actually from their grandkids, and they can hear their grandchild's voice, and their grandchild is telling them, that they're in an emergency situation and they need money, and they're going to be in serious trouble of some sort or another if they don't get that money, and it's going to happen right now, and you don't have time to think about it, so you better send it right away. That's actually happening now. But in regard to the Roblox thing, all right, I think that this is a perfect storm of events, and I think this happens all the time, where people with nefarious ideas, like, hey, let's use, the next disaster we find happening within society to uh, essentially get people to give up this freedom for this type of safety. That happens with gun control, that happens with identification, right? That happens with road laws, that happens with like the DUI checkpoints, for instance, are something that our forefathers never foresaw, never would have accepted, would be rolling over in their graves over them. And just different things like that occur because you can convince women that the government can make them safer than they can make themselves. You can convince women to outsource their parenting to a school system and a child care system and a police system and a juvenile detention system and a psychiatry system and television and now the internet. And then blame each of those systems when something goes wrong, but never themselves. You can convince women to give up every right every citizen might have just so that they don't have to do the work of ensuring their own child's safety and their own child's development and their own safety, right? And taking responsibility for their own actions. And so what you end up with in our generation, it was latchkey kids coming home and watching TV and discovering that when the movie channels came out, sometimes there was nudity and sometimes there were sex scenes, and sometimes there were movies that were much scarier than we were old enough to watch, and stuff like that, right? But in generation Y, started to be things like getting online and finding chat rooms, and in the Zoomer generation, it became games. And you would think that after Gen X's children had the issue of running into predators on social media and in their online games, that parents would understand that you can't just plop your child in front of a game on a computer that is massively available to everyone around the world, that is multiplayer, it's got its own world, and it's got a chat that pops up whenever anybody wants to talk to you. If they see your name in a section of the game and decide that you're interesting, they can message you immediately. That might not be safe for your child, and that there might be people in there that don't have your child's best interest in mind. You would think that it would occur at least to parents, mothers and fathers, that maybe it might be a good idea to supervise the child's use. of these types of environments, right? Have the computer facing the room. Ask the child what they're doing. Listen to the child's speech on their when they're talking on their headset. But nope. Apparently there is a massive issue of the millennial generation who should know better because they experience this on social media. They experience this in chat rooms. Maybe you shouldn't. You would think that millennials would be aware of this. No, they outsource just the same as your parents sat you down in front of the television and said, "Watch Sesame Street," and then as soon as they weren't looking, you watched Jaws instead. That's complete idiocy, right? But the worst part of it is, it's going to be another generation before people start to realize, women especially, that the biggest predator of them all is Uncle Sam. Right? Uncle Sam is not going to protect your children. Uncle Sam wants to use your children as wage slaves. And they're not wage slaves to their employer, right? Their employer is not skimming off of their paycheck to give food stamps to people that won't work. Not can't work, but won't work. Right? The employer is not skimming off of their paycheck to send missiles to another country that could make an agreement to end a war but refuses to. Right? That's not their employer. That's Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is not, he doesn't give a shit about how much money he takes from you and how hard you have to work to make up for that loss. He will bleed you dry to pay for research on how much cocaine you have to give to a pigeon before it has a heart attack and dies. And if you're dumb enough to think that Uncle Sam is going to make it safe for you to outsource your primary job as a human being after you have children to an inanimate box that gives everyone in the world access to them, you belong in an institution. But certainly don't support doing that to the rest of us, because some of us like our freedom. Some of us raised our children. You should do the same for yours.
All right. Well, I don't know if you guys think I went a little bit into conspiracy land, but I think it's true that anytime there are always people waiting for some kind of moral panic so that they can have more control over, like citizens, and it usually comes from the state. It almost always does, actually, because they're the ones that have the authority or ask for the authority to do that. So. Let me know what you guys think about this Roblox story. Did you guys know about this? I reached out to BX. I reached out to Bex BX, who normally does a really good job of keeping tabs on all kinds of ways that young people, especially young men and boys, are preyed on the internet. And I figured she probably knows something about this Roblox situation that I don't know. So she hasn't gotten back to me yet, but when I learn something, I will get back to you. But yeah, it was just another way for the government to step in and, for our own good, for the children. And I think that's a common pretense, almost as common as for the women, is for the children. But ultimately, we are the ones that pay the price for that. So Art4 says PDFs on Roblox have been a thing for like 6 years. Yeah. I know they said in 2022 or something like that, maybe 2021, there was one of the early. But but basically anytime you have an internet community and you have young people, you're going to get PDFs. So
this is something this is why I say nobody is going to have your children's best interest in mind more
except
than you do as a parent.
Yes.
Right? If you don't, your kids are fucked. Okay? That's just it. You can't outsource protecting your children from these things to the government. You can't outsource it to moderators. You can't outsource it to some browser with parental controls and all that stuff. You can't just ignore your children. Why did you have children if you are going to ignore them? Like, I don't understand what is wrong with parents that do this.
Yeah. Well, they think they can have their cake and eat it too, and it's usually single moms. But the other thing too is that even if there's somebody that's watching this that's like ignorant enough to think that an online safety act would actually protect their children from PDFs, you have another thing coming. The purpose of this is not to protect children. The purpose of this is to control information. And that's one of the main reasons why I made this a story, because everything on the internet, just like all of our media, for as long as there has been media, there have been people trying to control the narratives in those media. And until the internet, everything was controlled, right? Like the boomers, and I'm not saying this is shit on boomers because my parents are boomers, but the boomers grew up watching TV, and Gen X grew up watching TV too. But we also happen to be right at that sweet age where we can decide to think for ourselves and look at what's going on the internet. But for as long as you were learning everything about the world outside of your immediate community, it was done through the television and the radio, and there was a filter. There was a filter there that was, sort of corralling you in a certain direction, with how the information was, sent out, what the style is, what was reported on, what was not, etc. And then the internet comes along, and it's basically the Wild West. And these people who've been controlling the narrative for decades and decades and decades, now they're afraid. And so the only way they can continue to hold on to the narrative is to control the information on the internet. And they can't just take it because we know what's going on. So they use these other pretenses like, oh, well, what about the children? We got to control all the information. So, and again, it's not like they're not doing something anyway, but I think that this is the reason why you should be concerned. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this Roblox story. Do you have any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess the best way to put this is every generation has their thing that parents think they can outsource their kids' time to, like babysit as a babysitter. And any time that it's out of your control what your kids are experiencing, the answer is no, you can't do that. You can't outsource like that your child care to that item, because that item is going to allow your kids access to something, or something access to your kids. And I think there's a thing that people just don't understand about predators, right? And it's, I guess, as someone who had to develop an understanding of her own boundaries artificially over time because a predator destroyed them early on. There's an awareness that I've developed being around people with some predatory nature. When you set any kind of boundary, whether it's you have to be 13 or under to enter this room, or these people are off limits, or just you can't do that, right? That is not something that the predator takes as a stopping point. It's not something that the predator takes as, I'm going to get in trouble if I do this. And it's not something that the predator takes as a reason to be concerned or afraid or cautious or anything like that. It is a challenge. You've now gamified getting on the other side of that boundary. By letting them know it's there, you've created a situation where they're going to go sniffing at the bottom, top, around the sides, look for any holes, look for any cracks, look for any way through that you don't control. And you can watch them doing it from the inside. I've sat and watched someone doing that from the inside, and it is creepy as fuck. But if you're a kid, you don't know it's happening. If you're a kid, you have no idea what is being done. when you are being groomed. You have no idea when someone pretends to be another kid and starts talking to you online, and then, either they get into your good graces or they get your trust, and later you find out you were talking to an adult. Right? It is extremely sneaky and dangerous. And I think a lot of people don't realize there isn't some rule set you can create, and the predators are all out there just going to be, oh, well, this is against the rules. Now we can't do this. No more, no more diddling kids. We're off the case, right? No, they are going to find every loophole, every crack in the armor, every way to go underneath it, above it, around it, through it. It'll be tested from every angle. And every success they have is going to be some kid whose parents thought they were safe because they voted in all these policies that force you to give up rights that you have in the name of protecting their kids. And they'll probably sue someone over it, and they'll probably win. But their kid will never be the same. And in the meantime, thousands, hundreds of thousands of other people have had to change their lives and their way of doing things in the name of protection that failed.
Yep. Well, anyway, as I was saying, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. It's time to move on to the next story. So, just a quick, we're going to watch this video, but first, I'm going to read this little bit, and I think Mike is going to take it from there. So, Surrey police, if you guys don't already know, because I know this is not a news story, but like it is within the week of our news show, Surrey police in the UK launched the Jog On campaign in July of 2025 to combat street harassment, particularly catcalling targeting female runners. Undercover female police officers posed as joggers in harassment hotspots, such as Reigate and Banstead, I hope I'm not butchering that, to catch offenders in the act. Supported by nearby police teams, the operation led to 18 arrests in its first month for offenses like harassment, sexual assault, and theft. Why? A 2024 Surrey Council survey found 49% of female runners experience harassment but didn't report it. Okay, the campaign aims to deter behaviors like catcalling, honking, and lewd comments, which make women feel unsafe and can escalate to serious crimes. So let me play this. This is the actual, like, what do you call it? PSA or news story. It's very short. It's 45 seconds, but you guys got to hear this.
I can't hear this, by the way. I hope the audience can hear it, but
yeah, I'm reading the captions, but I've seen this already too. So.
Oh yeah, no, it's stop playing.
Let me see if it works now.
These women aren't friends.
There we go. Yeah, I can hear that now.
Undercover police officers taking to the streets in part of a new operation trying to stop people catcalling and harassing female runners.
We get honked at, the staring, the hanging out of the window just to look at us, and it's so prevalent.
And police teams are ready to intervene the moment the officers are beeped at, followed, or shouted at, pulling people over.
Those kind of behaviours may not be criminal offences in themselves, but they still need to be addressed. And of course, the people that are likely to commit those kind of behaviours, they may then go on to commit more serious offences.
These women aren't.
All right, so that's basically the news clip of the story.
It took us several days to confirm that this was real. We saw this and we thought, there's no way this is real. We have satire in Britain. We have lots of satirical representations of what's going on, and we looked at this and thought, "Nah, that's not real." even with what's going on in the UK and what's been going on for the last few decades or so, we still looked at this and we thought, "There's no way this is real." There's no way they would actually do this, but they actually did this. It's real, and yeah, we're working our way through what's to even be made of it. Go on.
Oh no, that's basically it. I basically
Well, was
said.
that
I
what you were
mean,
going to say about it, Mike?
no, I think Mike had more to say on this, but
I do. But do you want to do the write-up?
yeah. I'll finish it. Okay. So, so supposedly this seeks to address the underreporting and promote public safety for women. So the campaign, inspired by similar anti-predatory tactics in bars, has sparked debate. Supporters praise its focus on women's safety, while critics, like the Free Speech Union, that exists in the UK, call it a waste of resources or entrapment. Yes, that's what I called it. People got really angry with me about that. Public sentiment on X is mixed, with some lauding the initiative and others questioning its priorities. And I want to say, just last thing I'll say, this woman looks like she's really humble bragging about how much attention she gets. I don't know if you caught that, but if you look, I'll show you where she smiles.
Streets in Surrey as part of a new operation trying to stop people catcalling and harassing female runners.
We get honked at, the staring, the hanging out of the window just to look at us, and it's so prevalent.
Yeah.
Look at that
she
face.
Looks so upset
She's like,
about that.
I'm so hot. You guys, we have to arrest these guys. I'm illegal. I'm so hot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mike, you can have the floor now.
Yeah, now I know what you're thinking. Has there been a sharp rise in what we call catcalling over the past few decades? Yes, I think there probably has been such a thing. Not among British men, though. British men generally don't do that unless they are, salt of the earth, working class extroverts. And even they have been bullied out of doing that over the last few decades. The quote-unquote catcalls are largely coming from elsewhere these days. Women aren't dealing with builders yelling, "Get your orcs out for the lads," from the top of a construction site. They're dealing with mysterious hooded men walking through a local park in the vicinity of a hotel, and they're just walking through it, just yelling, "You give me, you come, you give me, I have, I sex you, you have, I give you," and that's not really catcalling or wolf whistling. It's actual animal behavior. Like, they're not cats, they're not wolves, they're fucking primates, and they're dealing their usual animal behavior. It's what it is it's an attempted abduction through the use of words. And yes, that happens. It's like a nonce trying to lure a child into the back of their van, but they can barely speak English. So they don't know what to do. They're just going, you child, get in van. You go now. Me want have. It's not catcalling. It is the mating call of an actual rapist, and it can be heard in every major city from horizon to horizon, like dogs doing the twilight bark. It has become something of a problem. And so it makes sense that at some point we have to do something about all that shit. But it's Britain, of course. We are not allowed to hold non-British men accountable for everything. We are only allowed to blame everything on British men. I say we because that's the general rule that's imposed on all of us, but it's especially ingrained in the police. The misandric oikophobia that began to engulf the education system in the 60s began to engulf the police force in the 90s. Now they are both completely engulfed. It annoys me so much when people say The UK police are afraid of being called racist, as though that's all it is. That's where it ends. It's no. The reason the police are afraid of being called racist is because they will lose their jobs if they are called racist. Further, they can be sued if they are called racist. Called racist by whom, Mike? I'm glad you asked. Anyone. Even the violent criminal they are arresting can just call them racist and ruin their lives. If you arrest too many non-white people, as a police officer, you could be sacked and sued for being racist. If you approach too many non-white people as a police officer, you can be sacked and sued for being racist. So I guarantee you, these female police officers undercover as joggers are not doing a goddamn thing about the joggers, if you know what I mean. The Welsh choir boys. They're not doing anything about the austere religious scholars. I guarantee you that
Those engineers and doctors that you guys recently moved in. Yeah.
They're just jogging through the local parks. Then when a 50 IQ shadow beast from Pakistan goes, you, me, fuck you, you, me, you, now, fuck you. And they just ignore. They just ignore that shadow beast completely. And they wait until a British man sees this happening and he goes, I say, you there, leave those lovely ladies alone. And then they go, all units, we got a catcaller. And then 20 riot vans show up to arrest the British guy for raising his fucking voice in the presence of a woman. Meanwhile, the 50 IQ shadow beast is still there, going, I fuck you. You give me, fuck you. He's got his underpants around his ankles at this point. He's all, fuck you, and fuck your mother. I kill your family. And the police will just go, are you okay? Did the bad white man hurt you? Do you need a ride home? Do you need any food? Would you like a PlayStation 5? Here, have my firstborn daughter. Do whatever you like. I guarantee you that's what they're doing. Over and over again. And they're going to point to this endeavor of theirs and say, look, we're fixing the problem of catcalling. No, you're not. It wasn't even a problem. And you're not even fixing it. You're just punishing innocent British men for the crimes of everyone else. Because that's all you know. It's all you're allowed to do. You're doing sweet fuck all about the Zerg rush of shadow beasts who are actively raping and pillaging their way through everything that moves and everything that doesn't move, because you've been instructed not to arrest or detain those people. So I sympathize with the police officers who are just trying to do the right thing. They want with all their might to do the right thing, but they're not allowed to. They are instead forced to do the left thing. And the left thing is to punish your own men for the crimes of everyone else. That's all they're allowed to do. It's called progress. It's called social justice. It's called political correctness. It's called everything but what it is. Misandric oikophobia. If we don't call it what it is, we cannot even begin to fix it, ladies and gentlemen, any more than you can empty a bottle without removing the lid. I mean, it can be done. You just stab a bunch of holes in the side of the bottle. But you could instead take the lid off and call it what it is. And I think that's what we should do. And I can die happy if I can at least help the words misandric oikophobia re-enter the common parlance of the English language. Not even re-enter, just enter. These words have never really been in common parlance. They've always been relegated as these mythical, archaic terms that only scholars know about. People need to know these words. More importantly, they need to understand these concepts: misandry and oikophobia. We need to be able to communicate these concepts. And if we can't do that, if they've been so normalized that we can't even have words for them, then I don't know what the fuck we do. I feel like I'm a prehistoric human trying to invent language. Like, imagine how far we could advance if we had effective ways of communicating with each other. Wouldn't that be awesome? Like, if we could finally do that. Like, it might take 100,000 years, but eventually we'll get there. Right? Right? I don't know. I don't even know. Narrator's voice, I don't know either. To be continued, I guess.
All right, Hannah, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm gonna give feminists some quote bait here. This is all women's fault that this is happening in a number of ways. And remember what I said before about women outsourcing their safety? Well, the other thing that women do is outsource their charity. Right? You have to be nice to everybody in their name, even if you have reasons to not trust a group of people, or at least to moderate your boundaries, the boundaries of your nation, even with regard to people from other countries. There's a thing that happened here in the United States. We had this policy that was created, and I don't remember which president came up with this grand idea, but it was essentially that if you fled Cuba for the United States and you got 1 foot on a beach in Florida, you got refugee status and you could not be deported back, right? And it was done out of compassion. Everybody understood just, how badly people might want to get out of a communist shithole. And of course, men vote with their heads, women vote with their hearts, and women have won every election up until this most recent one. And so we end up with this policy. Castro's like, all right, gonna let escapees out of my country, take refugee status in your country. We're just gonna empty out our prisons and our asylums for the criminally insane. We're gonna put them on boats and send them over. Good luck. And so we got this mix of people who were looking for a better life and the people they were trying to get away from. Right? And you would think that the country would have learned from that, but we didn't. And we had president after president allow amnesty for illegal immigrants and caravans coming into the United States during the last 10 or so years of various administrations going, yeah, we'll just let anybody in. One guy that actually talked some sense about our border. Yeah, come in, but come in legally. Let us vet you for character. We would like to have people who want a better life, but we don't want drug cartels. So you got to come in legally, right? People got mad at him, particularly women. Women have actually posted sobbing, hysterical videos about how evil this man is for stopping MS-13 gang members from getting into the country illegally and murdering their neighbors. And I'm certain that the support politicians have had that have made them comfortable doing this to the UK is no different. That it's probably mostly come from women. And simps, right? Lefty liberals that the bleeding heart variety that Rush Limbaugh used to rail against. Just you can't outsource your compassion to your government any more than you can outsource your childcare. The government doesn't give a rat's ass about people who call themselves refugees, whether they are or not. Even if they are, the government doesn't care. Right? The government thinks that it can use the ensuing issues when you create a culture class, and this was quite a culture clash, to gain more control over the people. So you have the bleeding hearts that support this influx, this huge influx of people from a dramatically different culture. That's one way women are at fault for this. The second way is actually the women that they fled from back home. And that is the way that these men were raised to believe that if a woman doesn't cover up every inch of her flesh with thick black cloth that not only disguises everything about her, including her sex, to the degree that if a guy wants to get in someplace, he can disguise himself as a woman by throwing a blanket over his head with a thing around the forehead to disguise himself, and they've done it. They've attempted to use the burqa as a means of sneaking into places, along with refugee women, right? But women convincing men that any woman that doesn't dress like that is trash and deserves some sort of abuse. Men do what their mothers raised them to do a lot of times until they reach adulthood and learn differently through experience. And so again, when you have this culture clash and these guys come from this culture where only the lowest of low-life trash dresses like Westerners, then they're surrounded by women that they think are the lowest of low-life trash and can be treated however they want to. Right? They don't dare treat men that way because men can defend themselves. But women are wimps. And so they don't defend themselves. And these stupid bitches are not wise enough to this bullshit to go back to their government and say, you know what? Maybe we didn't get the best of the best from these countries. And maybe they need some sort of cultural education to recognize that what is normal dress here does not make all of the women around them low-life trash that deserves to be treated like shit. No, instead they say, oh, you got to punish our men for this because we can't admit that the men we are angry at are the men that we asked you to let into our country because we felt bad for them.
So
Too
I
embarrassed
want
to admit that they're wrong.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to show one other thing here. This is how I came across this story. It was originally shared by Peter Lloyd about 6 days ago. Shout out to Peter Lloyd, the suffragette, who shared this, and this is when it got my attention. And I thought it would have been very easy, I know, as naive as I am, to simply say, hey, this is entrapment. Like, you're basically setting a trap for people to, like, do anything that, because remember, she said staring and leering, and, like, catcalling is already, like, way beyond the pale as an American. Now, we've covered stories where they made catcalling illegal in, like, Nottinghamshire and I think another place, and they made it illegal to boast about sexual conquests in Scotland. So, it, like, obviously, this is sort of, like, downstream of that. But I say, well, now it's getting to the point now where this is entrapment, right? Like, this is like setting a trap for people by bad actors to get them in trouble. And I gotta say, the people who were the most upset, or at least some of the people, were men on X. So here's a guy named Korak the Bard, and he said, I can't help but be an asshole around women. Isn't the flex you think it is, scro? I don't know what a scro is. And I
That's
said, you're the
probably
asshole
short
if you
for
think...
scrote. And I'll
Scrote,
bet
I
Korax
guess?
the Bard is a female.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's so there's I think you might have seen in some of our coverage of the female dating strategy group. They're essentially female incels. But they don't have the same way of commiserating over being incels. Like actual incels feel bad about their situation. They talk about ways they can improve themselves, and they talk about, ways they can survive their situation and stuff like that. Female dating strategists just hate on men. They just absolutely despise men, and they refer to men as scrotes, which is short for scrotum.
Is that like femoids or foids? Like the
Yeah,
opposite?
they're calling women femoids at least requires the woman to be, somewhat of a bitch, or somewhat of a piece of a shit. Like, they don't call all women that. Incels do not call all women
have
femoids.
words like femoids, and you notice we don't have words like femisphere. This is
Right?
something I want to keep hitting on. Like, the idea that there is a manosphere in a patriarchy is inherently absurd.
Yeah, it is.
Patriarchy, everything would be the manosphere, but we don't have such a thing as a femisphere, because where feminism is taught is in every university, and now every high school, and now every middle school, and now every kindergarten, to the point where they're like, yeah, men oppress women everywhere, so you have to cut your fucking dicks off. And that's perfectly normal in kindergarten. And that's how far it's got. We don't have a femisphere because the entire sphere is the femisphere.
Yeah.
But they suddenly discover this thing called the manosphere, and they're like, "Oh, this is typical of the patriarchy," which is, you know what I'm saying? It's so absurd. It's hard to even fucking be poetic in describing it.
So, to explain the difference between a foid and a scrote, if you have a shitty attitude toward men, or you have a shitty attitude about the way you should live your life, you're a foid. If you have a dick, you're a scrote. Like, that's pretty much. Women generalize. Men get upset about real problems. Women generalize real problems to the entire population.
Yeah.
So this is probably not actually a dude. I talked to this person too, and
they have a YouTube channel. I'll look at it, but all I'm saying is, basically, they said that I'm an idiot because I believe that it's ridiculous to make catcalling illegal. But you know what? Maybe this is a fundamental. I don't know where this person's from. I hope to God they're not from the United States. But this seems to be a fundamental difference between European sentimentalities and Americans. Like, we're the only ones
the United States.
What this person was doing in that conversation, that was a disingenuous argument, right?
Yeah.
You never said anything about not knowing how to behave around women. You never said anything about you personally catcalling women. And I remember what I saw the account did. Like, the first thing was to say that. Then the next thing was to start saying stereotypical things that feminists say that men say to women all the time, most of which have never been said to me by anybody but feminists.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a woman, you would think, right? But it's all stereotypical stuff. It's all fake. And it's, like I said, it makes me, if that's a man, that's a feminist man that has been so programmed by feminist women that you can't tell him apart from female dating strategy chicks.
I would believe that. I would believe this is a man that's trying to be the one good man that is regurgitating these talking points, and he's doing it publicly so that other people will see him and say, oh my God, what a hero for essentially standing up to someone who doesn't exist.
Yeah,
And
because
then throwing in lines like
also
January
reiterate-
6th. Like just
On-
throwing
on-
that in there like that means anything.
On the subject of Europeans versus Americans, I want to reiterate this as much as I can. Just like we have the one good man thing and the one good white person thing. This exists across continents at this point. Europeans and Americans are the only. Europeans and European Americans are the only people in the world we're allowed to hate. That everyone is allowed to hate, not just allowed, encouraged, rewarded for hating. And in the midst of this, we have Americans and European Americans and Europeans throwing shade on each other for all their various differences, and that's absolutely not what we should be doing. We're living under a tyranny in which Europeans and European Americans are the only people in the world we're allowed to hate. And not only that, we're, again, encouraged and rewarded for hating. So we should be pushing back against that. And the way we do that is by hating everyone except each other.
Well, the reason why I brought it up wasn't to just throw shade at Europeans. I was just pointing out that what I think is a challenge that Europeans, Canadians, and other Western countries that are not Americans are, and I think Americans have this challenge too, so I'm not saying that we're special, but I think that there is a certain kind of, I don't think Americans are the same as Europeans in terms of what they value. And I think that for a long time it was trendy to shit on America. We're fat, we're lazy, we like dumb things, burgers are gross, whatever. And we're not like refined, we're not cultured, etc. And that was for a long time. And I think that, like, for example, it's in Canadian culture to see the United States and Americans as, rude and mean and foul-mouthed and all of these other things. Yeah. And now, look, I'm not offended by any of that, but I'm saying that this kind of, like, this willingness or this, like, propensity to crap on the United States coming from other Western countries is like a trendy thing that I think should be dispelled. And I don't hate Canadians. I don't have a problem with Canadians or Brits, or any of those groups of people. But I think that there is still, on some level, a difference in values that I think should be looked at. For example, I think, I forget his name, but he used to be on the Lotus Eaters, young guy, glasses, and he made a video about how the United States is considering taking English people who are like free speech advocates or something like that. People who actually value free speech, like to a degree that is unique to the United States. That's what I mean by that. I'm not saying that it makes us better. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying that, like, other countries that are not the U.S. that don't have the First Amendment, I think they wrestle with this problem, and I think this is why you have people getting arrested for catcalling. Whereas we find that so absurd that, like, people couldn't, and of course, this isn't unique, like this problem of, like, getting arrested for speech or having the wrong opinions. In Canada, you can lose your kids because you didn't use their pronouns. I already mentioned the stuff that goes on in Scotland. I know that Goodfella has gone on like hour-long rants about these problems where he made a tweet and the police showed up at his door. We don't have that here in the United States yet. But one of the only reasons why is because we continue to value it despite everything. And I think that this is something that other cultures in the West could look at as an example and should. So this is not me saying the United States is just better and like Europeans are just dumb or anything like that. It's more like, look, guys, like, you're in a bad spot, and part of it is because you didn't think the things that we thought was important were that important to you. And now you've lost a lot of your freedoms as a result of that, right? So, I mean, maybe not everything, but like Europe is not in good shape. I don't mean the UK. I mean like France, Germany, Italy, you know, Spain. They're
Most
all
of
like
the
in
nations
big
in
trouble.
Europe.
Greece.
Yeah, and I want you to
We're
notice
absolutely
something.
fucked.
I want you guys to I'm going to keep hammering this home. This is being done in the name of protecting women. They are essentially using these poor, scared women can't handle this situation. And, this is a situation that women had a big hand in creating, right? But this is being done in the name of protecting women. Your freedoms, your rights, your ability to express your opinions is being the road work is being paved right now to take those away. If they can arrest you for whistling at some chick on the street, they can arrest you certainly for calling your member of parliament dishonest. They can arrest you for suggesting that the law that was just voted into effect is harmful to you and your neighbors. That is the real reason behind this. This has absolutely nothing to do with actually protecting women, and it never does. It is always for the government about how they can gain more power over you. And women are just stupid enough to allow themselves to be used that way. And then they're always just shocked when mission creep happens and suddenly their husband is arrested because he complained that his taxes are too high.
All right, Mike, I'm sorry. You were saying?
No, this was a stirring conversation, and I'm glad we had it, and I'm glad we can move on to the next story.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. But yeah. So anyway, thanks. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. All right. So next up, this is something that Mike J sent me. So I thought I would look at it. It's not really a news story, but it is kind of like says something about the sad state of affairs, and it's related to the thing we were just talking about. Because while I will say, you know, the United States is unique in that we have these amendments that are like enshrined in the Constitution, which I don't think any other country has, particularly the First Amendment. That doesn't mean that it's not constantly under attack. Like constantly under attack, and usually by often by outside forces, but not necessarily. So this was an article on the New York Times, an opinion piece. I put that in quotes. And it goes as follows. In the New York Times opinion piece titled "Abolish the Senate, End the Electoral College, Pack the Court," Ross Douthat interviews an author named Osita Nwanevu, who wrote The Right of the People, Democracy and the Case for a New American Founding, who argues that the U.S. Constitution's structural flaws hinder true democracy. Nwanevu criticizes or critiques institutions like the Senate, which disproportionately empowers small states, Wyoming's equal representation despite a vastly smaller population than California, and the Electoral College, which can override the popular vote, as seen in Trump's 2024 victory. He contends these mechanisms create political inequality and unresponsiveness, proposing radical reforms like abolishing the Senate, expanding the Supreme Court, and rethinking economic democracy to address wealth inequality and corporate influence, which he sees as undermining governance by the people. Nwanevu acknowledges the challenges of implementing such changes, given the Constitution's amendment process requires supermajorities, but he advocates for a long-term push towards a new democratic framework. While he values the Bill of Rights, he views the Constitution as outdated, designed for an 18th century context rather than modern needs. Douthat probes whether economic shifts like inflation weaken the left's case for reform, but Nwanevu insists public frustration with inequality and corporate power supports his vision. The piece frames Nwanevu's ideas as a response to democratic dysfunction exposed by Trump's presidency, sparking debate about whether such reforms are necessary or dangerously radical. And before you guys say anything about this, so Mike J sent this to me. I think he is concerned about this, and that's why, and I think he's rightfully concerned. But first things first, the United States, not a democracy. Never was, no matter what they tell you, it is not a democracy. It is a constitutional republic, which is why the smaller states have just as much influence or sway over elections as the larger states do. That's by design. We're not Canada, which is basically, Canada is a true democracy, which is why Quebec and Ontario essentially decide all the elections. So Quebec, Ontario, and Vancouver, I think. So, or British Columbia. So anyway, but there are always people poking at, trying to erode the edges of what we have. And I think that this is something we should be paying attention to, which is why I decided to include Mike J's comment, even though it's not directly a men's issues related although I think it is, because at the end of the day, this desire to make everything equal is feminine in nature, and it is all about, and it will be at the expense of men's labor and men's blood, sweat, and tears. So this is another reason why it has to be, we call it a masculine republic. What is the saying goes? Masculine republics become feminine democracies and then become tyrannies, or something like that. So yeah, this is where the push is going. It is headed in a feminine direction. It is under the guise of things like equality and fairness and true democracy, which sounds nice but is not good. But anyway, I just wanted to share that. So
yeah, true democracy is, like they say, two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner, right? And do you remember that thing I said earlier about how predators operate when you set a boundary? Right? This is an example of that. And how that has worked in the United States in the past can be seen in the adoption of things like teachers' unions. For instance, in Ohio, before there were teachers' unions, the teachers had a professional association, and they did not protest, they didn't strike, they negotiated between a group of professionals that were educators and a group of professionals that were administrators, many of whom, or most of whom, had been educators. And that was how they handled things like, how the school system is going to cover benefits and what the next year's pay is going to be and how long their contracts are and what the conditions are for getting tenure and things like that. And that was it. That was the only thing that the professional organization did. There was no contributing to the decision of what would be in the curriculum. They didn't standardize that through the professional association. That was done through administrators and through government channels locally, like the school board and the state school board, in order to maintain a quality standard. And then along came people who wanted the school teachers to be unionized, mostly in the big cities, and they began trying to get it voted in that the entire state would be essentially a closed shop. So they weren't satisfied with unionizing their own schools. They wanted to unionize the entire state, whether the teachers in the rural schools and the smaller city schools wanted to unionize or not, whether they had a reason to unionize or not. And so they voted. They pushed for a vote every year. Annually, the teachers all voted it down. And the way that it was done was similar to the Electoral College. Each school system had a certain number of votes. And I don't remember whether it was one vote per school system or whether it had to do with population, the size of the school system. But it was enough that the city schools couldn't just overrule the rural schools and force them to unionize. The city schools could have unionized without the rural schools, but that's not what they wanted to do. So they continued this until they realized they were never going to get the rural schools on board. And what they did then was change the rules. All right, now it's popular vote. And what the popular vote did was allowed the population centers to control the vote. Essentially, if you are in a rural area, even if all of the rural areas didn't agree to go statewide for the union, they still got forced into it. And that was the last time they ever voted on it. It was never voted on again because the unionizers got what they wanted. That is how people who crow about our democracy, that's how they work. Right? They try different ways, various ways to vote on something until they win. And once they have gotten what they wanted, they never vote on it again. And if you have a means of ensuring that one group of people cannot just impose something on another group of people against their will, they will look for a way around it, dig under it, right? Fly over it, try to punch their way through it, whatever it takes to eliminate that boundary. And as soon as they have done so, you never get another chance to put it up again. And of course, once they got that through in every state, then they had a national teachers union, and suddenly the union is writing curriculum instead of the administrators and the school boards. And what that has to do with this is essentially the same process is being done here. Right? This is the same predatory, how can we get around your boundaries? How can we get around making sure the little guy doesn't get trampled on by all of the people that we can con into thinking that we're acting on their behalf? And if they're able to succeed in that, it'll never go back. The country will essentially be two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner until it goes down.
All right. I don't know if you had to say anything, Mike, but okay, maybe he lost him, or he stepped out for a smoke. Sometimes he does that. So we will. What?
I said quite possibly.
Yeah, we'll move on to the next story, but let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Let me just make sure I didn't miss any super. I did get one from Richard B.
I was gonna say,
earlier.
everybody knows how long-winded I am. He probably figured he had time.
Yeah, he probably figured he had time. All right, so Richard B. gave us $5 super chow. Thank you. And it says, how long until the undercover female officers lodge a formal complaint against the department about them being compelled to exercise by surreptitious means? When they got to send the undercover cops to the local gyms, and then we'll see that.
There we go.
He's smoking. Okay, yeah, he is getting a smoke. That's all right. We'll move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Here's the last one. Sad news. Once again, at least like a personal favorite actor of mine, Terrence Stamp, the iconic British actor known for his role.
Who's this imbecile?
What?
Who is this imbecile?
Who is this imbecile?
That was his best line in Superman 2.
Oh, yes.
Who is this imbecile?
Who is this imbecile?
That's true.
You can try to sound it out like he does, but you can't.
The planet Houston.
No.
He so doesn't give a shit when he says it. Who is this imbecile? And that's what's great about it.
So, anyway, Terrence Stamp, the iconic British actor known for his roles as General Zod in Superman and Superman 2, Billy Budd in Billy Budd, and Bernadette in The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I've never seen that movie, but I've heard things about it. Passed away on August 17th, 2025 at the age of 87. His family confirmed his death in a statement to Reuters, noting his extraordinary body of work as an actor and writer would continue to inspire. No cause of death or location has been disclosed. and his family requested privacy. Stamp's 6-decade career, marked by an Oscar nomination for Billy Budd, a Cannes Best Actor award for The Collector, and roles in films like The Limey. Oh, I have that movie. Somebody bought it for me as a gift. The Limey and Last Night in Soho cemented his legacy as a versatile and magnetic figure in cinema. Tributes from co-stars like Guy Pearce and Sarah Douglas alongside fans on X highlighted his talent and impact, with posts reflecting on his iconic roles and charismatic presence. He was born in East London in 1938. So I guess he had that's why he was in the Limey, right? Because that's like the Essex accent, I guess. I don't know accents. Mike will probably explain that. East London, 1938. Stamp rose from a working class background to become a 1960s cinema icon known for his heartbreak blue eyes and roles in Far From the Madding Crowd and Poor Cow, 1967. After a career slump in the 70s, during which he sought spiritual solace in India, of course he did, he reinvented himself as a character actor, delivering memorable performances in diverse genres. His personal life, including high-profile romances with Julie Christie and Jean Shrimpton, and a late marriage to Elizabeth O'Rourke, added to his enigmatic persona. Stamp's passing, reported by outlets like the New York Times and The Guardian, marks the loss of a swinging London legend whose influence endures through his eclectic filmography and distinctive screen presence. So, Terrence Stamp, you guys know I General Zod. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
So
I actually did go see Adventures of Priscilla, Queen in the Desert, and I will have to say this: it was a good movie. It was made during a time when trans women were trans, and that's not something.
This
you
was
can
like
say
these
about
were drag
it
queens, though,
necessarily.
right? They were.
Yeah,
that's what
they
that
were
was
drag
about.
queens. They were
Yeah,
not
wasn't.
trans women.
Yeah,
You could you know the difference though. And at the time that was a solid point. And today that distinction seems to have been erased, and it would change the entire story. I'll just say that. But what a range. Like such dramatically different roles in different movies. And it's the idea that he became a character actor after, like that's sort of a, I'm a trope actor is a way of saying that. I don't buy that. I just don't.
yeah.
Shall we do some quotes?
Let's do some quotes, Mike.
Quote: as a boy, I believed I could make myself invisible. I'm not sure that I ever could, but I certainly had the ability to pass unnoticed. End quote. It's notable that he said, as a boy, they're notable, but perhaps accidental rather than instrumental. I'm sure girls sometimes feel invisible too, but I suspect not. Quote: unless I try, I'm never really going to be at ease with myself. End quote. Do you see the Zen? It's contradictory, the notion of trying to be at ease with yourself. Ease should not be trying, but paradoxically, it is. It's what we musicians call the flow state, when it's not so easy that it's boring, and it's not so difficult that it's stressful. It's the happy medium, where you know what you're doing and you can do it well. You can live your entire life in the flow state if you try hard enough. All right. Quote: all actors are incredibly insecure. End quote. Terrence Stamp can confirm. all performers have holes in their souls that can only be filled with applause. And, that's fine. It's not a sin, but it is a drive. Everyone should have a drive. We're all here to fill holes, aren't we? What else is there to do? Quote: I've never wanted to become a politician, an interior decorator, I've never wanted to speculate and make a load of money. I just wanted this. End quote. I feel you, bro. Hashtag me too. I dreamed of a world where I could put my stupid head and my stupid voice in front of a bunch of people and just do that in the hope that they thought my head and my voice were good. And it worked. I am forever grateful to live in a country that can provide the kind of life that dreams are made of. And I'm forever grateful to have another country that lets me visit it and hopefully move to it, as and when my own country implodes. We live in interesting times, folks. It is our blessing and it is our curse. Whatever it is, I'm glad to have shared it with you all. Let us rejoice. I couldn't find many Terrence Stamp quotes. Not a particularly outspoken chap. He just generally just turned up and he did the job and he got on with it. And what more can you really ask? They say don't try to be a great man, just be a man. Not they, but a Star Trek character said that, and it's true. What's more, a man doesn't even become a great man until he's content with simply being a man. I will leave you on that note, for it is a good note.
Yes,
Hopefully
we'll leave it there.
A resonant note.
Also, it's never too late to blow up. Like, you know, Terrence Stamp was like, I mean, he obviously got a lot of work in England, but Hollywood didn't happen until he was almost 40 when he was in Superman. And that's why, like, Americans know him as Zod. But he was like 38 when he did that. I think the movie came out in 1977, and he was born in 1938. So they were probably working on it, you know, the year before. I don't know how long it took to make movies back then. I know it takes a long time these days, but I think back then you can get one done in like a year. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. He's one of those guys that I've always liked. I would quote him all the time. I didn't do that quote, the imbecile quote, but I will now. I would talk about Houston, from the planet Houston. Anyway, he had that dry humor thing going on, you know. But let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Yes, I know I feel really old. That's one of the other things, that when you see these celebrity deaths, especially because they're people you grew up with, you're like, holy shit, I'm old. And then you're going to start seeing celebs that you don't know are celebs because you don't know them from anywhere. And you're like, who is that person? I don't know who the kids are listening to these days. That's how you know it's over. But that, nonetheless, we're going to be going into the patron show now. And we're going to be looking at this video from Jubilee. I also have something else. Apparently, Aubrey Plaza was on a podcast and said something pretty fucked up when you know the full context. We might look at that as well. I don't know if you guys know, Aubrey Plaza is like an actress. She was in a show called...
She cheated on her husband, and her husband killed himself.
Yes, yes.
Woe
Okay.
is me.
Yes, she cheated on her husband, and then her husband killed herself, and then himself, and then she went on a podcast to talk about how she is affected by that. So we might look at that if we are able to. But anyway, with that said, we're gonna look at this video, one black radical versus 20 black conservatives, and try to like see if we can't figure out that this is actually just a male-female thing under a different paint job. Because that's what I suspect. So if you guys want to join us for that, you have to become a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com. $5 a month will get you into our Discord server where you'll be able to watch all of the additional content. If you want to check out the Discord server for free, just like as a test run or so, go to badgernation.online so that you can get in. And look, it's a really great community. We just did a meetup over this past weekend and saw some people that were, I think, in the... You know, they were just hanging out in the free version, and we got to hang out with them in real life. So maybe come check it out if you want to, like, you know, join us in virtual grass, and then maybe we'll actually go touch grass together. So anyway, with all that said, I want to thank...
I'm allergic to it.
Okay. If anything, though, thank you to Hannah and Mike for joining us on the show, and thank you guys most of all for coming on. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.